I never thought looking young for my age would become such a big part of my identity. My name is Laura Bennett, and I'm 62 years old. People rarely believe me when I tell them that. Most guess I'm in my late 40s, early 50s on a bad day. At first, I thought it was just good genes. My mom looked radiant even at 75, and my grandmother used to get mistaken for her daughter's sister well into her 80s. But over time, I realized it wasn't just genes. It was something more, something about the way I chose to live, think, and respond to life. The turning point came during my early 50s when my husband, Harold, passed away unexpectedly. I was 53. It was sudden, a heart attack in the middle of a regular Tuesday. No warnings, no health issues before. Just like that, my entire world shifted. I remember sitting in our kitchen, staring at the empty coffee mug he had left behind that morning. It felt like everything around me froze, but I couldn't afford to. I had 2 adult children, a mortgage, and a broken heart. Grief took a toll, no doubt. But somewhere deep inside, I refused to let it show on the outside. I couldn't control what was happening in my heart, but I could decide how I faced each day. That decision, just one decision to get up, to care, to keep moving, began a chain reaction. I began walking in the mornings, not for exercise but to breathe. To remember that life still went on. Then, it became a habit. Then, it became joy. My walks extended into workouts, yoga classes, and weekly bike rides with my neighbor, Karen, who was in her 40s. She jokingly called me the ageless wonder, and I'd laugh, but a part of me believed her. Then came food. I started paying attention not just to what I ate, but how it made me feel. The heavy processed dinners Harold and I used to enjoy turned into vegetable-rich meals with lean proteins and colorful fruit. I never followed a strict diet, but I avoided extremes. I called it eating with kindness, kindness to myself. But let me be honest, the real transformation wasn't about kale or cardio. It happened in my mind. After losing Harold, I spent countless evenings journaling. At first, it was just pain spilled onto paper. Then came reflections. And then came realizations. I realized how often I had put myself last, how many dreams I'd shelved, how many hobbies I'd abandoned. I started painting again. I booked a solo trip to New Mexico. I went to a local writing workshop and met people decades younger than me, yet they didn't treat me like an older woman. They treated me like one of them. I was rediscovering myself, and in the process, I noticed something odd. My skin looked better. My eyes had regained their sparkle. I didn't just feel younger, I looked it. One afternoon, while waiting at the pharmacy, a man in his late 30s struck up a conversation. He asked what I did for a living, and I told him I had recently retired from teaching. He looked stunned. "Wait, what? I thought you were, 45. That wasn't the first time I'd heard it, but that day, it hit me differently. Was it just good genes? Was I some fluke of nature? Or was there something more going on? I started researching. I read dozens of studies, psychology journals, and anti-aging reports. And what I found was fascinating. It turns out there's something scientists call perceived age, which is how old someone looks based on external cues, skin, posture, voice, and energy. And do you know what influences perceived age more than anything else? Emotional well-being. I found articles detailing how chronic stress can physically age a person, how trauma leaves marks on a body, and how people who engage in creative, fulfilling hobbies tend to have fewer wrinkles, better memory, and even stronger immune systems. I was living proof. By the time I was 60, I had people in their 20s asking me what moisturizer I used. I told them the truth: hydration, sleep, and avoiding bitterness. Because let me tell you something, nothing ages you faster than holding on to resentment. I let go of a lot after Harold passed. The fights we had that never got resolved. The regrets. The what-ifs. I forgave him, I forgave myself, and I moved forward. My children, now in their late 30s, sometimes laugh and say I'm busier than they are. I attend pottery class on Tuesdays, volunteer at an animal shelter on Thursdays, and spend Sundays hiking or exploring new parks. Last year, I even started dating again. His name is Samuel. He's 58, a retired firefighter, and has a smile that lights up any room. We met at a community garden project. I wasn't looking, but love has a funny way of showing up when you're blooming. One night, as we were watching a documentary together, he turned to me and said, "Laura, you have this glow about you. You seem ageless." I smiled. I'd heard it before, but from him, it meant more. I don't claim to have found the fountain of youth. But I've learned something that I think is even more powerful. Looking young isn't just about serums, diet plans, or miracle products. It's about how deeply you live, how openly you love, and how freely you forgive. It's about not letting the past calcify your heart. It's about laughter, community, joy, and purpose. Aging is inevitable. But how you age, that's something you have far more control over than most people think. When I walk into rooms now, people don't see a 62-year-old widow. They see a vibrant woman with stories, energy, and curiosity. And honestly, that's how I feel. I feel like I'm 40 again, not in body, but in soul. Recently, my daughter Megan sent me a text after meeting me for brunch. It said, "Mom, you've changed so much since Dad died, but in the most beautiful way. You're like a sunflower. You just keep turning toward the light." That message made me cry. Not from sadness, but from deep, genuine gratitude. Because the truth is, if you look younger than your age, it's not just your DNA. It's the way you choose to show up for life, even after it's broken your heart. I've learned that every wrinkle tells a story. And mine. They're stories of laughter, rebirth, and rising from the ashes. So if someone tells you, you look too young to be that age, don't just thank your moisturizer. Thank your resilience. Thank your healing. Thank your joy. Because that's the real secret.